Here. So I'm stepping in for Mark Nunberg, who is the one of two guiding teachers with Shelley Graff, and he's teaching for the month at Forest Refuge. So I'm happy to step into his place. So let's begin with our formal guided meditation, and you can just begin by just really settling comfortably into your body. Find your comfort. And there can be a little sense of relaxing into the pull of gravity. So anything that we've been sort of tensing up against, we can soften and let drop. Yeah, this body has weight, and we can relax into its weight. We can have a little sense of uprightness in the spine, just to welcome a sense of clarity, a sense of purpose. So our posture always balances the relaxing and the alertness. And just notice if there's any holding in the features of your face. The eyes can soften. Your ears and inner ears. The jaw, your throat. And then feeling on down to the inner body, your heart area, your belly. So we do what we can to allow the breath to move freely. You can have the image of a baby's belly, how naturally it expands without reservation. So just feeling your own baby belly with each breath. Let's check into the heart-mind this morning. Just notice how we're feeling. Is the heart in a bit of a tangle? Is it relaxed? Without any judgment, just noticing what's moving in the heart this morning. And this morning, let's practice kind of letting go of normal, habitual habits of our mind. And we'll play with just gathering the mind around the movement of your breath. Can let the breath anchor us in our present moment experience. We may feel it at the belly, or we might feel it more strongly towards the tip of the nose. Or maybe we want to feel the breath through the body, through the whole torso as it moves. We appreciate this isn't natural to the mind. The mind wants to dart around. So this is a training to gather. Don't despair if you feel the mind all over the place. It's okay. We just call on our patience, on our resolve, and find our way back to the present moment. Please take a minute to stretch. Feel free to stand if you need to for a moment. Just take care of yourself. Okay, I always like to bring to my talks whatever is sort of an edge for me, what I'm working with, and I've been really reflecting on renunciation, and reflecting on renunciation kind of and desire, and how they play together, and how they're both integral to the path, inseparable from the path. So how do we skillfully hold or practice with both of them? So renunciation, maybe when you hear that word, renunciation, that's the topic, maybe there's a little heart sinking, or a little like, oh, what do I have to give up now? Whatever. Yeah, so I relate, and the Buddha related, and I'll talk about that. But it's considered a perfection, one of the beautiful qualities of mind that is necessary for our liberation, for our awakening. And the Pali word is nekama, literally non-karma, so like the non-creation of karma, the non-clinging. And it has kind of connotations of leaving the lay life into a monastic life, so traditionally, but more broadly, it constitutes leaving what is crowded, a realm of dust, and going forth into the open air. So in the suttas, renunciation has this, it doesn't have the feeling of passion being dried up. It has the feeling of moving into space, of moving into freedom, out of prison. Letting go of what binds us to ignorance and suffering. So, as we may know in the Four Noble Truths, the second Noble Truth is that the cause of our suffering is really related to desire and clinging, and that's something that needs to be examined. But desire is also part of the path. So how do we play with this? And I want to read these words by Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who's a wonderful monk and scholar. And he says, all phenomena, the Buddha once said, are rooted in desire. Everything we think, say, or do, every experience comes from desire. Even we come from desire. We were reborn into this life because of our desire to be. Consciously or not, our desires keep redefining our sense of who we are. Desire is how we take our place in the causal matrix of time and space. The only thing not rooted in desire is nibbana, for it's the end of all phenomena and lies even beyond the Buddha's use of the word all. But the path that takes you to nirvana is rooted in desire. Ajahn Sucitto, another wonderful monk, he has this metaphor that has really stuck with me. He puts his palm up and he says, mindfulness is a concentration system like with two features. So on one side, kind of the firm side of the hand, we shield the heart and mind from what doesn't protect us, from what harms us, from what will therefore harm others. So it has that system, and then it nurtures, it cultivates what supports us, what leads to wisdom what aligns with truth. And I think we can think of renunciation also with this metaphor, like what we say no to, what we shield from our hearts. We do that because we recognize it harms us. That's the only reason. The only thing we ultimately renounce is suffering, right? And saying no to this means saying yes to this. So what will bring freedom and nourishment? So I think that's a useful way to think of renunciation rather than a sort of burdensome, narrowing demand. So what is skillful desire? This is Thanissaro Bhikkhu again. He says, the notion of a skillful desire may sound strange, but a mature mind intuitively pursues the desires it sees as skillful and drops those it perceives as not. Basic in everyone is the desire for happiness. Every other desire is a strategy for attaining that happiness. You want an iPad, a sexual partner, an experience of inner peace because you think it will make you happy. Because these secondary desires are strategies, they follow a pattern. They spring from an inchoate feeling of lack and limitation. I'll just read that again. They spring from an inchoate feeling of lack and limitation. They employ your powers of perception to identify the cause of the limitation, and they use your powers of creative imagination to conceive a solution to it. I want to talk a little bit about power and how that plays with desire. So I gave a talk some time ago about the Iddhipadas, and they're the 4 powers. And this was news to me. Like, I've been on this path a long time. And the 4 powers, why don't people talk about that? But I found it really, really powerful to learn. So these are 4 mental qualities that are described as the basis for success, whether it's success in our worldly life, whether it's success in our spiritual life. And so in the etymology of the word, pada of Iddhipata literally means foot or feet, moving forward, onward, leading in a skillful way. So it has this implication of wholesomeness. And then the iddhis, the iddhi of the pada is like, it's associated with the siddhis. It's like a Hindu term, which is really a potent mind. It can even connotate like psychic abilities. So power leading forward. And so the first of these 4 Iddhipadas is chanda, which translates a combination of things: aspiration, intention, desire. And it's endowed with active volitional striving. So it has a sense of purpose. It has a goal. It has that clarity of goal. And so having chanda is our capacity to hold a vision based on our appreciation of its value. Like, this is close to my heart. This is close to my concerns. I put it out there as somewhere I want to place my heart upon, something that will direct my energy. So this really suggests, like, desire has many colors, right? So from one end, we have chanda, like that could be like our deepest desire to not be driven by fear, to find freedom in our hearts, to live wisely, to do good in the world, chanda. And then tanha is craving, or more literally thirst. And we could think of this as a whole world of addiction where we really become imprisoned by desire, right? And then there's everything in between. So it's an essential force in the mind-heart, but can become craving when we're fixed and dependent on outcomes. So isn't that a paradox, a crazy paradox, like how we place our whole heart in the world, but have to be prepared to let go? Like, this is the teaching, and it's wisdom that allows that, both of those things. Ananya Chatterjee is a wonderful choreographer in town, and I invited her. I teach at Macalester College in the Department of Theater and Dance. I invited her to speak with my class, and she told a little fable. She's from India, that she learned growing up, and I don't remember the context of why she told the story, but the story really stuck with me, that these baby birds in a nest in a forest that's burning to the ground, and the mother is bringing little droplets of water from the base of the tree. There's a little water, like bit by bit, to the birds in all the heat and fury of the fire. And so it's like they're destined to be consumed by the fire, but it's like there's an energetic imprint, right? What is being cultivated in the mind of that mother bird with each action? So it's like not the end of the story. The death of the body is not the end of the story. Like, this is karma. This continues. So how we can feel out when a desire is wholesome in us and when it's going to be a challenge and be a source of suffering. How do we tease that out? I found this really elegant passage by Gil Fronsdal, who, a wonderful teacher. He says, when surface concerns and chatter quiet down, among the beautiful things we can find are our aspirations. The etymology of aspiration, like spiritual, is rooted in the Latin word for breath, spirare. This points to the close relationship between breath and aspiration. Craving tends to contract the breathing. Aspiration surfaces most easily when our breathing is relaxed and open. In the same way that natural breathing can't be an act of will, so too the motivations and sense of purpose that come with aspiration can't be willfully generated. Staying aware of our breathing can keep us close to what inspires us. Notice the physical and mental tension, pressure, and uneasiness that come with craving. Makes it easier to distinguish between aspiration and craving. So when we have a strong aspiration and we kind of hold it front and center and foundationally, it will shape how we relate to the moment. It will shape what we pay attention to, how we pay attention, how we act, the decisions we make. So it can be like on a really conscious level, or it can be foundational, that just kind of sits at the base. We have this desire, we have this concern that is a force in my life. And unconsciously even, that will inform how we move through our days. This is the Buddha, this very pithy statement: whatever one frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of the mind. So what do we want? I think it's a really important question, that it's a shadow side of Buddhism, like, no, I don't want anything. I think we need to really know what we want, because our habits will then, if we don't know what we want, our patterned habits will be what lead us through life. Our craving will be what leads us through life. So this, again, this paradox, this training to hold the moment as an end in itself, but also understand its onward leading nature, like both are true. And Ajahn Chah, our kind of grandfather, senior teacher in the Thai forest tradition, he has a really useful metaphor for this. He says, when if we want to go to the airport, for instance, we clearly know we want to go to the airport. And then we're traveling to the airport. We won't know all the streets necessarily or the traffic that we'll encounter. There'll be many decisions. And we don't have to each moment say, I'm going to the airport, I'm going to the airport, I'm going to the airport, right? It's this foundational understanding, this is where I'm headed. So it doesn't have to be burdened with anything oppressive, but we know where we're going. And, and we might be afraid of goals. We might be afraid of aspiration because it kind of kicks up that striving, egoic part of our personality, but that's okay. That is part of the learning. We have to learn about effort, and it's purifying just to even engage in those questions. And the archetype of Chanda, this first Iddhipada, is the lover. I love that. So it holds our connection to value. If we don't know what's valuable, we don't know what to feel connected to. So going back to renunciation, I really was kind of pleased to learn that when the Buddha was a bodhisattva in training, his heart did not leap at the idea of renunciation. I'm just going to read this. This is the Tapusa Sutta, and it's translated by Thanissaro Bhikkhu. This is from the Anguttara Nikaya. So Tapusa is a householder, and he's speaking with Venerable Ananda, who is Buddha's kind of right-hand person. He says, Venerable Ananda, sir, we are householders who indulge in sensuality, delight in sensuality, enjoy sensuality, rejoice in sensuality. For us, indulging in sensuality, delighting in sensuality, enjoying sensuality, rejoicing in sensuality, renunciation seems like a sheer drop-off. Yet I've heard that in this doctrine and discipline, the hearts of the very young practitioners leap up at renunciation, grow confident, steadfast, and firm, seeing it as a peace. So right here is where this doctrine and discipline is contrary to the great mass of people, this issue of renunciation. And Ananda says to him, this calls for a talk, householder. Let's go see the Buddhist, let's go see the Blessed One. Let's approach him, and on arrival, tell him this matter. However he explains it to us, we will bear it in mind. And this is what the Buddha said, and this is a much longer passage. I've just taken a paragraph out. He responds, he says, so it is, Ananda, so it is. Even I myself, before my awakening, when I was still an unawakened bodhisattva, thought, renunciation is good, seclusion is good, but my heart didn't leap up at renunciation, didn't grow confident, steadfast, or firm, seeing it as peace. The thought occurred to me, what is the cause? What is the reason why my heart doesn't leap up at renunciation, doesn't grow confident, steadfast, or firm, seeing it as peace? Then the thought occurred to me, I haven't seen the drawback of sensual pleasures. I haven't pursued that theme. I haven't understood the reward of renunciation. I haven't familiarized myself with it. That's why my heart doesn't leap up at renunciation, doesn't grow confident, steadfast, or firm, seeing it as peace. So he took it on as a practice. What is the drawback of clinging to sensual pleasure? What is the reward of renunciation? And then this last little paragraph. So at a later time, having seen the drawback of sensual pleasures, I pursued that theme. Having understood the reward of renunciation, I familiarized myself with it. My heart leapt up at renunciation, grew confident, steadfast, and firm, seeing it as peace. Then, quite withdrawn from sensuality, withdrawn from unskillful qualities, I entered and remained in the first jhana. The jhanas are like these meditative absorptions, rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal, accompanied by directed thought and evaluation. So I think that this is like an invitation for our own investigation. So what are the drawbacks? And probably most of us have struggled enough with ordinary addictions to at least appreciate how imprisoning craving can be. So I think the trickier thing is to appreciate the rewards of renunciation. And they're related, of course. And I'll just talk a little bit about that. In a certain relative way, this can be like a path of increasing pleasure, from pleasures that are kind of less reliable, more coarse, kind of maybe it's pleasures that cause harm, to pleasures that are actually deeper, kind of are steadying, empowering. So this is from the Dhammapada. The Buddha says, if by giving up a lesser happiness, one may realize a greater happiness, let the wise person renounce the lesser, having regard for the greater. But we have to appreciate the greater. We have to know what that is, right? Because otherwise it's like this addiction, that's all I got, So there has to be an understanding, what is here? What are we saying yes to? Because if we're not empowered by a yes, then craving will have its way. And this is a process of maturation in the past. The Buddha has a term I like, serene disenchantment. Like there's an organic maturing where we naturally let go. So this is one way we move from a dusty realm into a realm of space. There's just a natural letting go of what we learn doesn't support us. We kind of get that in ourselves. We feel that. And so the mind seeks somewhere else. Like in Hinduism, there's this wonderful image. It's called neti neti. Not this, not that. And it's a little bit like climbing a ladder. Not this, try this. Not this, I'll try this. But there's a deepening wisdom with each of those rungs as we kind of let go of these ways that used to take care of us. I was having sort of a poignant memory that when I was a kid, I had a ceramic pig that sat on my dresser. And I just loved this pig to death. I loved this pig. And I took it to sleep with me one night, secretly, because I know that's not cool, But I just wanted it, against my chest. And of course, it was a pile of pieces on the floor in the morning, so it was horrifying. It was a tragic moment in my 6-year-old heart, however old I was, I don't remember, but it's the reason I remember it. But what strikes me is how much power that pig had. Like that was really a deep attachment, that this heart, had this wanting, and that was the object where it landed, was this ceramic pig. So we can all think about things as we were kids that had that kind of, we had need around it, like that first bike or, and had I not broken the pig, I'm sure that that passion would have just faded away and that pig would have collected dust. I never would have remembered how important that pig was. But it's like, yeah, things just let go. We let go, we let go. So for me, there's some comfort in that there is a natural maturing, just by living life. We learn this. Yeah, and even in my practice, and like how, we can just have patience, right? Like when I was in Burma many years ago, and this was in a very strict container of sitting, walking, 2 meals a day, and that's it. That's it. And you meet with a teacher who's really stern every other day. So this is not a pleasant encounter. It's like, whatever. So it's like sitting, walking, and, and I was really diligent, really bent on concentration, and, but sometimes it was like, all right, I need a departure, and I say, okay, you got 45 minutes to have a sexual fantasy, Wynn, or you have 45 minutes to do your next choreography, or, so I sit for an hour, and sittings are long, sit for an hour, okay, I'm gonna go now, and absorb into this tantalizing, place, and okay, enough, and come back. And that was like, at the time, it felt good. Like, and I was afraid, because, you always feel like the teachers absolutely see what you do, and, they know from the quality of your report and whatever. But it was like, okay, I did that. But what's interesting to me now, it's like, and I notice it particularly when I'm retreating, is the mind does not want to go out. Like I might see a flash, an impulse of like thinking about this, or it's like, that's really interesting to me. No, the mind, it just wants to be here, anchored, present, noticing these arisings, noticing these passings. And it's like there wasn't ever a decision, I'm never going to have a sexual fantasy again, or there, like in context of my sitting, that was not like a thing, but just kind of over time, just seeing how the practice shifted, and how, oh yeah, that hindrance that's not kind of part of the scene right now. I knew this would happen. My computer just shut down. No, it's not a battery. It just does. It's like there's this ghost in my computer. Oh my God. Well, I had a sense it was going to do that. It doesn't do it that often, but I said it might do it this morning. So we make a paper copy. Okay. So forgive me. All right. That's something. Yeah, it just dies. Yeah, and like I said, these are not decisions. They're felt responses. So it's like, yeah, it's not like Wynn making that decision. It's just like wisdom doesn't want to pick that up. There's no effort there. But we will all have our edges of where there is effort, and we have to make that decision. Yeah, it's interesting, like just in my closest relationships where there's just a lot of verbal communication, it's interesting how often like I'll notice what's behind something I'm about to say, and there's some wanting something back in my words, so there's some like, and it's like, oh, do I need to say that? Because I feel like, oh, I set myself up for suffering because I don't know how my partner's going to react, and I'm like wanting this thing back. And so it's like, even just in a moment-to-moment level, just moment to moment, noticing if there's clinging in the thought behind our words. Notice if there's a clinging in our action. And when we taste that, again, it can be really organic, just like letting go of a hot coal, right? Just, no, I don't need to go there. I don't need to go there. So trustworthy pleasures. Yeah. So first of all, there is not a problem with sensual pleasures. It's the entanglement of the heart and mind in the sensual pleasure. So just to say that clearly, we are surrounded by sights, tastes, hearing all the time, right? And we can be nourished by a beautiful sight, by something that we hear, by a taste. But it's when the heart grabs hold. So that's what we're talking about. It's not the good meal, right? It's how we can't stop eating. And so we can appreciate, for instance, that the pleasure of beautiful states of mind are a kind of more refined pleasure than a pleasure of like a good meal, for instance, like the pleasure of confidence, the pleasure of compassion, the pleasure of presence, actually. Like these are really delicious if we sort of attend to them, if we feel them, and they are trustworthy. And Ajahn Sucitto, he talks about, like, with these beautiful states of mind, he says, breathe it into the body, imprint it, take it in, saturate. He often uses the word linger, like linger in these beautiful states, receive them. And receive them without complicating them into like a self view, right? Receive them just as they are. This is compassion arising versus Wynn being compassionate. And just to feel the subtle difference between those things. And it's super subtle. Bhikkhu Analayo talks about the soft pleasure of mindfulness. And this is, again, like something not to be missed. When we're gathered in presence, when we're connected into our body, that there is, in that sense of space and metta and kindness and curiosity, there's a soft pleasure. So even when what we're attending to is like really ugly, like when we're watching our own jealousy or being mindful of how cruel this heart is in this moment, it's still considered a skillful, onward-leading state when we're mindful of any hindrance. This is onward leading. So we don't need to be afraid of what's difficult in the mind and heart. We just need to be present, like a caring parent. Like that's, because otherwise this path becomes like oppressive with the ways that we try to control the mind and heart. It's much lighter, it's much softer, much steadier. And when we can be present, right, with these really afflictive states, we can understand them better. We can understand how they're born. There's this term, yoniso manasikara, wise attention, attention at the root. So yoni is womb, like where something is born, where a moment of wanting is born. Like that can be observed with kindness, right? We pay attention at that level. So instead of our kind of proliferating mind, which takes us in abstractions very far away from the felt experience, very far away from the birth of a moment of dukkha, the birth of, a craving or a hateful thought, right? So we want to stay close and allow what needs to move to move. And yeah, Ajahn Sucitto again describes this kind of space of mindfulness. It's like equanimity is vast. We can put everything in that. Happiness is more narrow. I just lifted that from a talk that he gave. I just like that, just like we can put everything in that space of mindfulness that has an evenness and care. Yeah, and it's like, can we be interested in contentment? And we've been lately taking these long drives up to Bayfield, Wisconsin. So it's a 4-hour drive. And I've been playing from time to time, okay, turn off the podcast, turn off the radio. And just for this hour, like totally lodge the attention right here in your driving body, right? Present with the chaos of the highway, right? Breathing and yeah, so this is kind of neutral activity, sort of maybe boring if we had to carry, well, maybe this is boring. Maybe I think this is boring is why I don't want to be here. But if we kind of really show up for the activity of driving, like moment to moment, we see like, oh, this is content. I'm content, yeah. Now I'm not content because this just flared up in the heart, because this person just, so we can just see that. But this sort of reference point of like being able to be with really neutral, unflashy experience, like we settle there. And then the whole kind of subtle arisings can be seen and let go, right? Like that's what's so beautiful. And we come to know the pattern. So we can say that there's 3 kinds of cravings. And Joseph Goldstein uses non-addiction for renunciation. That might be more palatable, like, because we can all buy into that, non-addiction. But the 3 forms, the 3 things that we addict to, or the 3 things we reach out towards. So entanglement with sense objects, sense pleasure. So these are the delights of the eye, the ear, mouth, just our senses. So craving for sense objects. And then there's the entanglement with the craving to become. And this is more subtle, more ongoing. So we could describe this as a restless activity of mind, striving to become someone or something stable. We can be trying to build an identity that will finally let us rest. This is who I am. And this is all part of our hunger for power, for beauty, for perfection. And it's led by a wrong idea that it will make us safe, finally. And that's the problem, right? It's based in a misconception. The sense of identity, the sense of self is inherently unstable. And craving for non-existence, yeah, and this we all know deeply, right? Like craving to be separated from painful feeling. So we drown in Netflix, we drown in wine, whatever it is that will separate me from this painful feeling. And this craving for non-existence, craving for existence, or becoming, non-becoming, craving for sensuality, this is part of us every day, all the time. So it's like an important part of mindfulness is to get that these are universal forces. This is for all of us in the room, all the time. And so we can let go of judging what we find in our hearts. Like that's really important to let go of that. Because if we're judging it all the time, we can't be with it. We just become self-hating, And so to really make sure that compassion is in the mix for you in working with mindfulness practice, like that goodwill toward ourselves, toward our experience, toward others, towards others' experiences is foundational. Ajahn Suchito offers one more kind of insight. It's like when we're dependent on these external objects, these impulses to become, to not become, that we relinquish power, that we become more fragile. And it's because we're not aligned with wisdom. That reaching is not aligned with wisdom. I'll just talk a little bit about the hungry ghost. This is in Buddhist cosmology. There's different realms of existence and that are both kind of literal and metaphorical and psychic. But one is the realm of the hungry ghost. And these are beings that have pinhole mouths, pencil-thin throats, and huge bellies. So they're always hungry, but can never ingest enough to feel satisfied. So these are hungry ghosts. So in our sitting practice, and sitting is how we build our strength. It's how we come to know everything that's moving, right? If we never look, we'll just be subject to what's moving all the time, right? But this is our sitting practice. We get to know the terrain. We get to know our own hungry ghost. And we get to love our own hungry ghost, right? The thing that can't be satisfied. We really understand that movement in the heart. We come very close to that. These are Pema Chodron's words. She said, so it's like, when we touch into that pain, that kind of nausea of wanting, that kind of, we bolt, and the way we bolt from that is through a proliferating mind, the way we think, right? We build a story, just because being with that energy, touching with that energy is really, it's unpleasant, it's painful. But this is what Pema Chodron says, like in doing that, when we do that, we interrupt the momentum that usually follows. We do this by not following our thoughts. We train in sitting still with our desires. This is how we learn to stop the chain reaction of habitual patterns that usually rule our lives. So if we practice in this way, our wisdom grows and slowly becomes stronger than the force of our afflictions and our addictions. We're running out of time, and I just want to read this last sutta, because it's the Buddha talking about his own fear and saying, as I was sitting, and this fear and dread would come upon me, what if I just sit? I won't walk, I won't lie down, just be. And if I'm lying down and this fear and dread come upon me, I won't get up to walk, I'll just be here. I'm just moved by this, so this is a longer sutta, but I'll just read these two as a way to end today. So he said, and while I dwelt there, a wild animal would come upon me, or a peacock would knock off a branch, or the wind would rustle the leaves. I thought, what now if this fear, what now if this fear and dread coming? I thought, why do I dwell always expecting fear and dread? What if I subdue that fear and dread while keeping the same posture that I'm in when it comes up? When I walked, the fear and dread came upon me. I neither stood, nor sat, nor lay down till I had subdued that fear and dread. While I stood, the fear and dread came upon me. I neither walked, nor sat down, nor lay down till I had subdued that fear and dread. While I sat, the fear and dread came upon me. I neither walked, nor stood, nor lay down till I had subdued that fear and dread. While I lay down, the fear and dread came upon me. I neither walked, nor stood, nor sat down till I had subdued that fear and dread. So we're still with our fear and dread until we discover what's on the other side of our fear and dread. And the Buddhist teaching is there is an other side to our fear and dread. And so I just was moved by this passage and just sort of appreciating the Buddha's description of like his resolve, right? This fear and dread. I'm going to be present with that. And also, I think the word subdue is tricky because we don't want to suppress, right? Like that is not the teaching, to suppress what arises. We come to know what arises, and the subduing is in like not following it unconsciously, right? So that's the subduing, where we come to know, we contain that energy so it doesn't rule us. Okay. There's more to this talk. I'm sorry, I have to end. Maybe I'll end with just a beautiful quote I got from Marcia Rose. She's a teacher. She said, this is from Andre Comte Sponville, and I changed the pronouns. The simple person lives the way she breathes, with no more effort or glory, with no more affectation, and without shame. Simplicity is freedom, buoyancy, transparency, as simple as the air, as free as the air. The simple person does not take herself too seriously or too tragically. She goes on her way, her heart light, her soul at peace, without a goal, without nostalgia, without impatience. The world is her kingdom, and it suffices her. The present is her eternity and delights her. She has nothing to prove, since she has no appearances to keep up, and nothing to seek, since everything is before her. What is more simple than simplicity? What lighter? It is the virtue of wise women and men and the wisdom of saints. Let's sit for just a moment, just to let the words. Really appreciate being here with all of you this morning. And I just wanted to point out that there are several practice groups every week that are just like drop in for if you have questions, like Mark and I do a 4:30 to 5:30 on Sundays for people just to come and ask questions. So there's not interaction here, but if you're left with questions, those groups are there for you, and you can just drop in, be a listener, however you want to do it. So, okay, thanks.
Hi, I just have a couple of announcements. The first one is, oh, yeah.
Is it this one?
Okay. I think, can you guys hear me on Zoom? Okay. Thank you, Wynn.
Mm-hmm.
Really appreciate it. All programs at Common Ground are offered free of charge. Dana is the Pali word for generosity. In the spirit of generosity, my glasses are in my pocket. So I think what it says, I'm going to get, yes, sorry. This is the first time I'm doing this, and so I'm brand new to it. Thank you for your patience. 2/3 of donations go to Wynn as a guest teacher, and then 1/3 goes to the annual fund. So people that are online, they can go to the website and find how to support the Common Ground. And then there are 3 bowls out in the hallway back behind this wall. And the center bowl is the one for today's talk. There's also a credit card, scanner, Square Reader, and Venmo are possibilities for people in building too. And there was something else small groups. If people want to do small groups, that's one of the things that we do after till noon. And so we can help you, the host can help you get into small groups if you wish. And if you don't want to do small groups, then we'll see you another time. Thank you.